Hi, I'm Susan Cotton. I'm the teacher author behind Miss Cotton's Corner. Thank you so much for joining me for day 3 of 30 days, 10 minutes to a more literate classroom. Today, the idea I'd like to share with you is a connecting readers idea. You're probably noticing, even though I've put everything in a specific theme, a lot of them cross over, and so far all the ideas we have explored, I have said, well, this also connects readers. Well, that's because I hope that you're starting to get the idea that I run my classroom, or at least I try to run my classroom, in a way where readers are constantly connecting. So today, the idea that we're going to be talking about is specifically meant to connect readers around a book. The idea is super simple. Bring a book to school day. Now, you've heard of bring your kid to work day, right? Maybe some of you have even done that. That's kind of where I got this idea from, but of course I've tweaked it a little bit over the years and done it in some different ways. Here's the way I find that it works the best. I tried to use this idea pretty early in the year, and then maybe a couple of times throughout the year. It's important that you don't do this idea until your kids have some idea of how to do a book talk. So if you don't start book talks on day 1, save bring a book to school day for a little later. But usually by the time I've done 6 or 8 book talks, so we're talking around the 2nd or 3rd week of school, we're ready for bring a book to school day. I send home a note, and you can see a sample of that note that I send on my blog. I send home the letter to parents explaining what we're doing and explaining that I would like every child to bring a book to school. Now, full disclosure, some parents and students get very worried about this because they don't have a lot of books in their home. So you're going to want to right away open that door as far and as wide as you can. Don't just say to the kids, well, bring in your favorite book, because some kids may not own a copy of their favorite book. Open that door as far as you can. So one of the funniest experiences ever that I had with this strategy is a kid who brought in a book about Thomas the Train. And everybody's like, oh, Thomas the Train, was that your favorite book as a child? Which is totally fine. Lots of kids do bring in their childhood favorite. And in fact, in a minute, I'll show you the book I share, which was a childhood favorite of mine. He said no. He said this is the book that he hates the most in all the world. And we were like, oh, well, tell us about that, because it's totally fine to bring in a book that you hate. Turns out he hates that book because he had to read it to his little brother over and over and over again. You know how 3-year-olds are. So my student had read this book to his 3-year-old brother so many times that he could no longer bear to read it. It was a great story, and we had a lot of readers connecting over, oh yeah, I have that about my little sister too. It was an awesome connecting moment in my classroom. So when we start this idea, when I talk about it, I always show kids the book that I loved the most as a child. It's called Miss Susie. You can already guess why I loved it. It has my name in the title. This is not a great book. It is not high quality literature. And in fact, I'm sure it's not even available anywhere. It's a story about a little squirrel, and I always tell the kids, I loved this book so much as a child, and when I was an adult and I wanted to take some books from my parents' house, I looked all over for this book, and my mother had thrown it out. Probably I had read it so many times that it was falling apart or something she couldn't remember. So one day I was at Goodwill, where I often go to buy books, and I saw this book. And of course I had to have it because I loved it so much. Now I look at it as an adult and I'm like, ooh, not great. But it had my name in the title, and that's why I loved it. So I share that story with kids just about like I did with you. And then I say, would anybody like to borrow my book? Now with this particular title, I don't get a lot of takers, although because I'm the teacher, there's usually a few people who are like, yeah, I'd like to borrow that book. But that, of course, is the whole goal of this strategy. We're going to connect over books, and we're going to borrow books. So here's how it works. You share a book that you loved as a child, or that you hate, or that is your best read that you just read, or the summer beach book that you adored. Share something that's authentic and real with your students. And then you say, kids, I'm going to ask you guys to bring in a book. I'm going to give you a couple of days to search around your house. Go to your grandma's house, get a book from her. Go to the library, get one that you love from there. I don't care where the book comes from. But on Tuesday, I want everybody to bring a book to school day. And then you send home, you give them the note that tells their parents what you're doing. On Tuesday, I promise you, 5 kids will forget their books. It doesn't matter how many times you have reminded them, 5 kids will forget their books. No worries, you have a plan for that. You are a wise and wily teacher, and you knew they would forget their books. So you only planned to have half of your class do their book talk on the first day. They've all got their books there, but you only planned for half. So let's say you have 25 students. You're going to pick 13 students that first day, and you're going to ask them to get their book. You're going to ask them to tell the title, the author, and why they brought the book. It is their very first book talk. It's pretty short, it's pretty rudimentary, it's certainly not as amazing as it will become, but it's a start. You're going to remind them that they're not summarizing the book or telling everything they know about the book. And especially they're not telling the ending if there's a surprise in there. Then you're going to take and you want to have 4 or 5 groups in your classroom. So you're going to split out those 13 kids, putting 2 or 3 in a group. And then you're going to ask the rest of the kids to spread themselves out evenly and choose one of the groups. It's important to make sure you give kids some choice, because even though it's a group of only maybe 5 kids, this does feel like public speaking to some of the kids, and it can be scary and vulnerable. Number 2, this can also be very vulnerable because kids are sharing something that might be very meaningful to them. You know, some books touch us and make us cry. Some books connect to experiences that we've had in ways that make them really live in our hearts. If a kid brings a book like that, they need to be able to be in a group with people that they trust. So the choice is how you help make that happen. So when you look around your classroom, you'll see about 5 groups with 4 to 5 kids per group, and 2 to 3 kids doing a quick book talk. At the end of their book talk, they put out the half sheet, which you'll find on my blog. It's free. Will you lend me your book? Okay, so the half sheet just says the title, the author, and the book owner. Anybody who would like to borrow that book can just write their name on there, and you'll see it's a contract. If they ask to borrow the book, they are promising to return the book in good condition, and I kind of spell that out. The book owner has complete and total freedom to say no. Do not force somebody to share a book, because for some kids, it is the most precious thing they own. But some kids are going to be like, sure, go ahead, borrow that book. That's totally fine. Wherever they're at on their book loaning journey, you just go ahead and be fine with that. The goal of this lesson is kids are sharing books. Kids are connecting about books. And the conversations that happen in the 10 minutes that you give them for the book talks, those conversations are fantastic. And they build that conversation and the connections reader to reader. Then of course, the 5 kids who didn't bring their book. That day, that first day, you're going to touch base with each of them, and you're going to say, did you forget your book, or do you need a book? Because some of them didn't bring books because they just don't have one. And if they need a book, no worries. You're going to take them back to your classroom library or down to the school library, and you're going to make sure that they have a book. So the second day they come back, they will get in the same groups. So there'll be 2 kids or 3 kids who've already done the book talk, and 2 or 3 who need to do the book talk. And again, it's about 10 minutes, because these first book talks are super short. 1 to 2 minutes per kid is about all they need. They'll share their book. People will ask to borrow the books. They'll talk about the books for a minute. And that's the end of that strategy. I use this strategy probably 3 to 4 times a year. The first time, the conversations are a little minimal. Kids are still getting to know each other. They're still working on their book talks. By the last time, sometimes the book talks have gotten so well developed that I need to put kids in groups of 2 or 3 because otherwise we can't get it done in 10 minutes because they need more time for book talks. This is a really awesome strategy for connecting readers. And of course, you're selling books because they're going to sell books to each other for sure. And you, the wise teacher, you're watching and listening, and you're getting to know your readers. It's a great strategy for about the 3rd week of school. Check out my blog and my TPT store to download those freebies. And thank you so much for watching. Happy teaching.